Coming up in today's podcast.
I was at a break once. There was this poor sister who's had terminal cancer, was in huge amounts of pain, not at the break, but there was, and I think it was her husband or family member who was talking about her, that because I was saying, how is she? She said, oh, she's in huge amounts of pain. She's really struggling, with being in pain. And this other brethren man turned around and said, well, these sisters, they don't know what suffering is. And I just thought, how dare you? I wish I'd had the courage to say, how dare you? How dare you make that comment? These sisters don't know what suffering is. I just thought, wow, that's just something else.
Yeah, I mean, they make that comment, but I mean, the biggest burden is put on the sisters, isn't it, really, with all the entertaining and looking after the kids and while the men just want
my blood is boiling right now at that man.
I was going to say, I just don't know what to say to that.
That makes my blood boil. Terrible.
And then the other comment that I've heard others say as well. So I've heard this before, that it's better off that, if somebody's going to leave the brethren, well, actually, it's better off they die, because
I heard that are.
Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Cult conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Get a Life podcast. I'm Jacky Hart, and I'm an ex-member of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, which was formerly known as the Exclusive Brethren. I have my friends with me. They can introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Andrea Becker. I'm from Germany, originally Canada, and I left the Brethren a year ago with my husband and 2 daughters.
Hi, I'm Ross Turner. I'm from Peterborough. I was kicked out of the Exclusive Brethren in 2014 for being gay.
Thank you. And we also have our special guest with us, Helen. Helen is currently in Australia, but she was originally from the UK. And Helen's here to tell her story, which I know a little bit about, and it's quite an amazing one. So, Helen, I'm going to hand over to you, and let's start at the beginning.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for inviting me on here. I'm very happy to tell my story. So, I was born in the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, or as I used to know it, the Exclusive Brethren. My parents were born into it. It's multi-generational. Their parents were born into it too, except for my grandmother, who, on my mother's side, my maternal grandmother, who came in from outside, and she, from what I remember now, she was invited to attend one of the meetings by a friend of hers and decided to stay and never leave. So we've had a very happy childhood growing up in Watford. I was one of 4 children for quite a long period of time before my younger brother came along. But it was a very happy childhood, very loving family. My dad was a very hands-on dad. My mum and dad had a very equal partnership and very respectful. 1-2. They made joint decisions on everything, and he always used to help around. I remember him being very hands-on, making the breakfast every morning, and also they took us on a lot of day trips. Obviously, we were never allowed to stay away overnight or go on holidays, but they used to take advantage as much as they could of taking us to various places all over the country. And there's not many places of the UK that I haven't visited because of the amount of day trips that we used to go on as kids. So I was very close to all my grandparents and my uncles and aunts and cousins. There weren't any members of my family that had ever left before. So it was a very tight-knit and close family. I had some really good friends in the Brethren that I grew up with. I also grew up in the era of JHS, Mr. Symington, and he was hardline, he was pedantic, he was dictatorial, he ruled with a lot of fear, had a huge amount of control.
I remember.
Over the Brethren. And he was, everybody was very fearful of them. At the age of about 10, I was actually given a camera for my 10th birthday, and I would take a lot of photos of friends. I mean, you can imagine a preteen and teenage girl. You took a lot of took a lot of pictures of my friends, family, and I still have those albums even today. And I'm so glad I did, because I'll just show you them actually. I've got a load of albums here, so photo albums, and these are all pictures that I had growing up, and I'll refer back to some of those because it's been a really incredible opportunity to create some memories and be able to look back and think, yes, I really did have a life and a great family at that stage of my life. When I was 7 years old, something really pivotal happened to me, and it had huge reverberations throughout the rest of my life and continues to be something that I look back on. My dad was always on the periphery of being, I guess, a responsible brother or a leading brother. He would occasionally be sitting in the front row of the meetings. He was a very modest man, though, and quite humble, and I don't think he really liked too much attention drawn to him. And he was involved in some priestly visits himself as well, because of his seniority within the Brethren. But there was one day when I was 7 years old, and my mum came into the bedroom that I shared with my two sisters, and she was very tearful. She told us that we'd been shut up, and I remember just thinking, I mean, it was almost our world falling apart. There was something you always would absolutely dread and be so fearful of. That was the one thing you were fearful of, being kicked out of the Brethren. You did everything to keep yourself in. And so I remember asking why, and I wasn't given an answer. I vaguely sort of recall that it might have been something my dad had asked or questioned, something he questioned. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that fact. But I tried to imagine, what our life was going to be like. Now we're shut up, will we ever be able to go back? I don't remember too much about the few days that followed, but then about a week later, my mum came back into her bedroom in floods of tears and said, "Dad's been withdrawn from." Well, this was just a whole new level of fear, and just thinking, I think like a lot of kids that age would probably feel, are we going to go to hell? Are we now going to miss out on the rapture? And, just a side note to the Brethren there, that the amount of fear that the Brethren put into children at that age around the fear of the rapture and the fear of being left behind, it's extremely cruel, extremely damaging and detrimental to the mental health and think of the children. Because I'm not the only one that ever felt like that. But there were a bit of a blur those next few days when we've been told my dad had been withdrawn from. And on the day that, like I said, going back to that day that my mum came into our bedroom and said, he's been withdrawn from, and in the tears, and my brother, my older brother, my two sisters were so distraught, as I was. But I remember going to my bedroom window, looking out and seeing this boy walking down the road, and he was holding a little radio on his shoulder, and he was just walking down the road. And I remember thinking, how can you do that? How can you walk down the road looking so free, looking so happy, not looking over your shoulder and wondering if anybody's going to catch you and then report you so that you'll be torn away from your family? And this overwhelming feeling came over me. It's almost like a blanket being put around my shoulders, and it said, one day you're going to be as free as he is, and you're going to be free. You're not going to be like this. This is not how you're going to live. And it was such a feeling of complete warmth and overwhelming happiness that I felt in that moment of absolutely distraught. When I looked around the rest of the room and everybody was so distraught, I just remember thinking, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be good. And also it made me then relax, because I thought, no matter what now happens, this is not going to be my life. I will not live in the way that my parents do, with this fear, this cloud hanging over them. And so really,
and you were 7?
I was going to say you were pretty young.
That's pretty young to have that understanding, because like the kind of fear is actually, it's hard to comprehend, isn't it? And you learn it from watching people around you, like your parents. You learn that fear from them.
Completely. Yeah. I guess in some respects it was almost like a reverse form of brainwashing. I was brainwashing myself to say, this is not how you're going to be, and you're going to be out of here at some stage. Now, I had no idea how that was going to look or what was going to happen, but I grew up from the age of 7 with this in the back of my mind, thinking that this is what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to go. And so, yeah, I felt completely at peace with that decision, that no matter what and how my journey was going to be over the next several years, eventually it was going to be out the door on the other side in freedom. And there were a few things that helped me in that journey, because I had really good school friends. I didn't go to a Brethren school. That was if you remember,
pre-Brethren school days,
pre-Brethren school days.
We had that small touch of freedom, didn't we?
We absolutely did. And I think that I mean, thank goodness I did have that, because I had a really good friend, and I call her Pam, because she haven't asked her permission around using her name but I call her Pam. She was amazing. She was really interested in my life. And I had some really good friends around me. So my very, very best friend in the whole world, my younger sister, we were very close friends. The other person was my school friend. And then I had two Brethren friends as well, girls that were really good friends of mine. So I had these different pockets of friends. I was at school, I was at home, and that was when I was in the Brethren. But at school, Pam was just incredible, and I was fascinated by her life, and she would share things around that were happening to me, and likewise. And about a year later, after the summer holidays, she came back to school and said, Helen, guess what? I've become a born-again Christian. Well, I had no idea really what that meant. Christian. But all of a sudden, she started wanting to talk about her faith with me, talk about the Bible, talk about the church, about the services that she went to. It was a very sort of evangelical type of church, and it just blew my mind that there was these churches even existed. It was just very odd. And
because that's quite a point. I remember in the days when you and I were in Helen, it was very hard to comprehend that there was any other church outside of the Brethren church that believed in Jesus. And as you say, to actually be told there's somebody who's talking about faith in a way, it's quite mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely is.
Because you're led to believe that there's no other church that has a faith like the Brethren have.
Definitely.
Not to mention that they talk about Jesus way more than the Brethren did.
Well, yes.
And the Bible, and they actually understand what a conversion is. We were not taught that. We were taught fear.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And she would ask me what I thought about certain scriptures. I had no idea. And she would bring her new international version of the Bible into school, and she'd show me. I thought, well, I'm not sure if I should touch it, but let me have a look. Read it.
Such was the fear, though, wasn't it?
I know.
Such was the fear. Yeah.
And I remember reading it and thinking, I actually understand this. I understand this.
Yeah. So to explain to the non-Brethren viewers, the Brethren Bible is written in quite an old text style, isn't it? It's very thee and thou, and it makes quite a difficult read, whereas the New International Version, as we know, is written in a much more colloquial language, or easy to understand language. But you're right, it's
no, that's absolutely true. And so that was really interesting. And so that was really good. And I was studying, and I did well at school. Fortunately, I did pretty well. I found schoolwork really easily. I did well in my exams. And about the age of 14, I then started to really think, okay, I'm going to be leaving. It was just still at that age, 7 years on, it was an absolute, I will be leaving. How is this going to look? And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go to university. I'll have to wait till I'm 18, because anything around that era, you couldn't do anything until you're 18. You need your parents' permission for almost everything you did. So I thought, well, at 18, I will apply for university, and I'll go to university and I'll do that. Or the other thing I was thinking, maybe I need to earn money. So I thought maybe I'd join the army, and I would wait till I was 18 and I'd apply to join the army. And on the day that I was due to join, I would walk out the house, I'd leave a note, and I'll go to do my training, and they wouldn't be able to get at me. And I would leave like that. So I had these sort of vague sort of plans in my head around maybe that might be, but I think it all centered around me being 18, and I started to sort of wish my life away to the age of 18, really. And it got to the stage at school where I was starting to ask, I want to stand to sixth form, want to do my A-levels. And of course, my parents said, well, there's no point. What on earth do you want to do that? You can only go to, that's for people who want to go to university. You're not going to university. Well, I'm thinking, well, actually, that's exactly what I'm planning to do.
So just to interject, sorry. So obviously your father was withdrawn from, so I presume
sorry. I should have gone back. Yeah. So at 7 years old, when he was withdrawn from, actually, he and I, we were all back in. Within a few days, he was back to being shut up. So I should have gone back and said.
And are they still in?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So they were. We were the whole episode of around when I was 7 years to my dad being shut up and withdrawn from, and then back to shut up, and then it was a space of 3 weeks. It was really quick. Yeah, sorry, I should have said that. So
no, that's okay.
Yeah. So we were all back together again.
But I remember that episode because obviously you and I were in the same interchange meeting, and I do remember that. And it was also quite peculiar because nobody knew why. We didn't know what had happened to your father. Suddenly the family, and there was sort of, they've been shut up, he's been withdrawn, but nobody knew why. We didn't know what was going on. And then he was back. Yeah,
we're back.
And your father, I remember, he was a very gentle man. I mean, it must have destroyed him.
It did
emotionally.
It really did. Oh yeah, it did, and my mum as well. I think they just couldn't understand what it was, and I remember thinking, my dad, wouldn't walk on the crack of a pavement. He was so obedient, and it was just the most strangest thing. And of course, he was just so incredibly grateful to be back. There was no anger, he was just, looking internally as to what on earth he could have done. I think the only thing I can think of is that he was he questioned something, because that everybody was being withdrawn from and shut up with impunity around that time.
He's got the personalities.
Was he ever told why?
I don't know. It's not something he ever wanted to talk about with me. Like I said, the only thing, and the vague reference to him being him questioning something.
How dare he?
How dare he do that? Yeah. It was just a bit of a strange thing. About the age of 16 now, and my friend Pam, she's now. We were both really into music, so I was playing the piano a lot at that time. I was having lessons, and I loved music, anything to do with music. And my school friend Pam was recording the top 40 on a Saturday on the charts, and they came on. So on the Saturday evening in the UK, Radio 1 would play all the top 40 hits. So she would record them on a tape. On a Monday, she'd bring the tape to me to school and give it to me. And I managed to buy myself some headphones and a little Walkman to put the tape in and listen to it. And I would sometimes go into music blocks. There were some brethren children that went to the same school, and obviously my sisters went to the same school, so I'd have to be really careful. I'd go into the music block and put my headphones on, listen. Or there was a wood next door, so sometimes after school I'd take a long way through the woods to get home. Sometimes and then at night time, if my sister was absolutely dead asleep, I would go under the blankets and put my headphones on and listen under the blankets in my bed. I was always really careful about 3 secret places to hide these. And there was one day I came home, of course, eventually they're always going to be found. And my mum had found them. She said, look what I found, this is terrible. We found these tapes and cassette, how dare you have this? You're not allowed to have this. I said, yeah, I know, but can I have them back? They are mine. Of course, that was not going to happen. So after dinner, I went up to my room. I remember the day. And I'm laying on the bed and thinking, goodness, we're going to have to get ready for the meeting, which I didn't want to go to. And all of a sudden, I hear this crash, crash, crash. I look outside my bedroom window, and there's my dad and my brother with a hammer and my Walkman and my cassette tapes, and he's smashing them to pieces on the patio. And I remember just thinking, I thought that was going to happen. I can just see that happening. But okay, well, I'm going to have to get another one now.
Did he tell my dad how to do it? Because my dad made me step on mine until it was crushed.
Really?
Yeah.
It must have been a thing. Oh wow! So you would have known what that was like.
Yeah.
And
you look and you just imagine the money going out the window. He's gonna have to get another one.
What a waste!
I was like you, Helen. As soon as they got rid of one, I bought another one.
Yeah. It's quite funny. Yeah, there was actually going back. There's actually a really funny thing that happened, and with a meeting that I went to with JHS, James Symington. So he'd come to do a preaching at Barnet. Mrs. Symington was doing a reading or a preaching. I can't remember which one it was now. And he'd finished, and we were all at that stage. A lot of kids my age were collecting autographs. Do you remember that? I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, it was a thing, wasn't it?
And I found mine the other day.
Oh, you found yours?
I found mine.
I had one of those,
Yeah, and afterwards you go around, especially if there was brethren that come from other places, you go around, you get your autograph. Well, I think James Symington knew that, these kids were doing this. So after the meeting, he said, he made a thing that if anybody wants a signature, all the kids can queue up and he'll put his signature. So I thought, oh, this is good. Yeah, I'll do this. So I was collecting them, like stamps at that time. So I didn't have my autograph book. I borrowed my notebook from some kid and ripped a page out, and off I go to queue up. And he comes to mine and I give him my piece of paper to sign, except he doesn't sign it. He draws me a little pig.
No. Have you still got that picture?
I still got it.
Fantastic.
Got it. So, He draws me a pig, and I'm thinking, that's not what I wanted. I wanted his signature. So I'm a bit, annoyed about this, and I decide that there's only one thing for it. I'm going to have to go and queue up again and get his signature. So that's what I do. I go around and I queue up again to get his signature. And when I go, I'm thinking, you better not draw me a pig. I want his signature. And sure enough, I get his signature. Yeah. Anyway, I'm coming out, and all these brethren have heard that he's drawn me a pig. And I'm walking back, and they say, let me see your pig. Let me see that thing that you drew. Let me have a look. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, special. So I'm thinking, there's a pig. I wasn't going to do anything with it, but my mum stuck it in this little autograph book, and it's in here.
Wow!
With his signature. So it was in here, and there it is. I don't know if you can see there.
Oh yes, we can. Yeah.
There's a bit of drawing. There's like a felt tip pen drawing behind it. So but anyway, it's the scan picture I've done is much better.
Yeah. What that kind of shows, though, is how much the leaders were almost revered. And it's the same now, isn't it? But I mean, I remember in JHS's day, everything he did and said was revered. So even a drawing of a pig is seen like a sacred almost art.
Like, what does it mean? Like, what does the pig mean for her? Must mean something.
What does the pig mean for you, Helen? There's an interesting line of thought. Amazing.
So, and afterwards, for weeks afterwards, whenever there was a break or there was a meal, you had people around, for Sunday dinner. And the pig would come up in conversation, and I'd be told to bring the pig out so people could have a look, and you must have a look at the pig that she's been drawn. And when I left home, when I left home, I actually said to my parents, I'm going to leave my autograph book here. It would mean much more to you. And they said, you can't possibly. How could you say that? You take that with you. That would encourage you in years to come.
It will give you a measure of protection, Helen.
Yeah, the pig will give you protection.
Yeah, hopefully it is.
It's just so amazing. Anyway, that's a bit of a side
story.
Side story. But anyway, I'll share the pig. So then I started seeing, had a lot more contact with Pam after school. So after school, I'd run home to her house. If I ran, give me more time to be at her house. And she would put on things like Torval and Dean, the Olympic item, their Olympic ice dance, the Bolero. They won gold medal in the Sarajevo Olympics. I think it was early 80s, and she'd recorded. And there were other sort of big events around that time that she recorded on video, and I'd go and watch these. And I was just amazed at the whole technology and TV, and I became such a TV addict in those days, and desperate to go around, put the TV on. What's on? She said, "I was just ads. It doesn't matter. We'll watch the ads." And she was. But she was incredible. She was such a patient and so supportive as well as everything I'm doing. But the meetings at that stage were feeling like an absolute dirge, and I was wanting to, stay on. I was having conflict with my parents around wanting to stay on at sixth form, and eventually. After going to college and meeting with the tutors there, because my parents said, if you want to stay on at sixth form, at least go and have to speak to the college, find out what they're offering, which I did. And I said, okay, I've met them, don't want them. Now we sign off and let me go to school, stay on at school. And they actually said, okay, all right, okay, I don't know what you're going to do with your A-levels, but there you go, you can do them. So that was incredible.
If I could backtrack a little bit what the thinking was at that time when you and I were at school, Helen, it was very much you left school at 16 and you went and learned a trade, didn't you? So for girls, it would be typing and shorthand. Yes. I think that was was about the sum total.
Absolutely.
And for the boys, it would be carpentry or bricklaying. So it was very much you went to college and learned a trade, or you went to work at 16, because of course then it wasn't compulsory. You could leave education at 16 then, you couldn't now. But to go and do A-levels was, if you like, really perceived as not allowed back then, wasn't it? It was perceived as using your natural brain, and it's not a way. You want to go and learn a trade. I mean, that'd be fair to say, wouldn't it? When we were
absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So you were bucking the system by wanting to do A-levels.
I was definitely bucking the system. And I think what helped was, although, our parents loved us equally, there was absolutely no doubt that we all felt loved in equal measure. My mum loved the fact that I was what she was termed as quite quick and able to, do so well at school. And my parents really encouraged it, which maybe was a bit unusual, but out of the five of us kids, to have that support from my parents, especially in that era, was quite unusual.
I mean, one thing I wonder, your mum did she join from outside?
No,
her parents. Your grandmother did. Yeah. I sometimes wonder, because my mother joined from outside, whether that just gives that slight element of independent thinking, because I had a similar encouragement from my mother who joined, and it's that slight maybe element of independent thinking that wants to see you do well despite everything.
And I think it was the same with us. I didn't do my A-levels, but like my mum went to university. She was one of the last ones that did, and I think it does definitely make a difference.
It really does. And
it's good that they chose to not follow everyone else, right? And to allow you to go, no matter what everybody else thought.
And I think a lot of the time my parents used to really push things as far as they felt they could allow. I was really into horses. I wanted to learn to ride horses. I wanted to have horse riding lessons so badly. I had books on horses. I was just horse crazy. And I remember my mum saying, she said, if we were allowed, I would allow you to have horse riding lessons. And to me, that was almost as good as having horse riding lessons, to have that acknowledgement. So I'll never forget that. I mean, she didn't say that about a lot of things, but I do remember that. She knew I was so into horses and horse riding that was something that to have her say that was good.
That's too bad you missed out, because nowadays I know lots of children in the Brethren who have horse riding lessons.
Yeah, really?
Some of my nieces do. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just being born in the wrong era.
Yeah, exactly. It was quite an austere era, wasn't it? That one.
The Lord turned a corner about horse riding.
Yeah.
You must be
early enough.
The Lord must be busy with all the corners that he's turned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But at that stage, it was as soon as they said you can stay on, well, I became incredibly impatient and around wanting to leave, and I wanted a life of freedom. I saw my best friend Pam have this amazing life outside, and I wanted her life. I wanted to be able to meet up with friends, go to a different church, go to the cinema, go do the school trips that I was never allowed to do. And have fun on the weekends. I mean, I couldn't ever say that we, apart from spending time with my family, which I really enjoyed, but the meetings weren't fun. I mean, the whole Sundays, that was never fun. I can't say that was a fun day.
Not at all.
It was not a Sunday fun day at all in any way, shape or form. I still wasn't sure what I wanted to quite do, but I realised I needed to have a plan B. I could not wait till I was 18. I needed a plan B. I needed to get out there earlier. And I talked this over with Pam, and she said, that's fine. And her and her mum both said to me, you can come and live with us. Come and stay with us. Stay with us until you work at what you need to do regarding moving on to the next stage. But you can always come and live with us. And I think having that in the back of my mind, thinking, okay, well, maybe I can actually think about going. This was about a month before, and this is a picture of my sister and I, and we are standing next to my brother just got a new car, and he was, I just wanted to show that because that's probably the closest picture I've got to just before everything, the proverbial hit the fan, and I ended up leaving. But I loved my sister, and that's one of the pictures is very, very special to me. So I'm just going to stop sharing that.
That's how I remember you, Helen. I remember that car.
I want to go back to your friend Pam at school. Like it really is so apparent to me that's why they stopped letting the older children go to the regular schools, because you got that bond from a young age, and she was a true friend to you, showed you that people in the real world are just as kind and loving, and as you say, a born again Christian, somebody honorable and kind. And it really, as a child who was raised in the era of brethren schools, I mean, I went to public school until grade 6, which is now rare. Children only go to grade 2 in public school, but it really does create you those bonds, and it kind of helped you on your pathway out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's so apparent to me why they had to stop that, because they were just bleeding people out from letting them have contact with the real world.
Completely agree with you there. I think without me going to a public high school with a non-brethren school, I would not have got all of this information, and maybe my life would have been different. I don't know. I mean, I was so adamant, and it was such an in-depth feeling that I was going to leave. I don't know if anything would have stopped that, but it definitely made things easier.
Yeah, and it helped you understand that the real world is not something to be terrified of, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll see if I can share it again, because I just want to show you something that I've got here, and I don't know where this is going. So this is a letter, and I found this a few years ago. I found this letter. So I used to do draft letters a lot, and this was before computers, obviously. So I drafted this letter to them, and it was really just saying, if you're not listening, then maybe I'll need to write. The worst harm you could do to yourselves and to me is to force me to give up the tapes. These were the music tapes I've been given. By doing so, I'll probably buy some more, not to spite you, but because I've no conviction as to what I've done is wrong. At 16, I think I should be able to make my own decisions. And then I go on saying that, I've done, please understand I'm different from my brothers and sisters. And then I talk about how I don't want to mean you any heartbreak or anger or upset you, and I don't do any of this on purpose, but it's just you're forcing me to do things that I don't feel are wrong, or that feel are right for me, and everything I'm doing, I don't believe I'm doing anything wrong, and that I do want to see somebody about this. And the second page, it says I do want to see somebody about this and tell them, and I'm not afraid of confessing everything to them. Saying that my sister's deeply shocked, and now she's not talking to me, and it hurts me, but I just finish up by saying that, please don't think I do not love you, because I love you both. So that was a letter, and then I wrote that out, and
did you give it to your parents?
Yeah, I did. So I wrote that out again. That was just a draft with mistakes and things. So then what I would do is I would write that out in freehand and make sure I don't have any mistakes. And I gave that to them. I got no response at all to that,
Wow.
At all. But it wasn't too much longer after that I'll come back out of that again. It wasn't too much longer after that I was thinking, what can I do to get myself, because there was no point in me saying, oh, I'm going to leave, I'm going to walk out the door, because I wasn't earning. I was 16. They could have brought me back at any time. So I was almost having to force the issue and do something to get myself kicked out. And then an opportunity presented itself on a plate to me. And I was studying English literature at school as part of my GCSE exam. And they were organising a trip to Stratford-on-Avon to see a Shakespeare play, Merchant of Venice, which I thought, perfect, I'm going to go. I probably will get caught, and then that will get me kicked out. Just paid the money. I said I'd lost the form. Sorry, my parents didn't sign the form. I've lost it. But here's the money. Unfortunately, they just added me to the list, and off I went for the day. I told my mum I was going to be late. I was got a music exam. And I came home really late, and I was very bad. I ran all the way home because I knew my mum would be so worried. And of course, she was really worried. And so she said, I phoned the school. You were not at school. There was no music exam. I didn't know where you were. And I said, I'm so sorry. She said, where have you been? I took a deep breath. Okay, here it goes. I said, I've been to the theatre, the school.
Wow.
And she just, absolutely shocked, and well, that's absolutely terrible. And she told my dad, and he said, we've tried to hold back. We've tried not to, involve the priest. He said, but this is a step too far. We're going to now have to tell the priest. And I remember thinking, oh, thank goodness for that. Finally.
There's not many. At last, yeah. Here goes.
It really was. And I remember going shortly but there was a bit of a funny period between that happening to actually the priest coming to visit me, and in between that they sent me off to Bristol. I think they thought that I'll get some divine inspiration, and I'd see the better of my ways. And
so was that one of the Bristol? Did you go and stay there, or was it one of the monthly? Meetings.
One of the monthly meetings. So every month there was a big monthly meeting in Bristol where all of the brethren from all over the country, and probably maybe Europe as well, I think.
Yes,
sometimes.
I used to coach there, and it was perceived to get a Bristol invite was perceived as an honour, wasn't it? It was, it was,
Oh, it's a huge thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
down there.
After you'd been, you were like eagerly awaiting your next invite, weren't you?
Yes, because you managed to see a lot of people that you might have seen at other 3-day meetings, and some friends and people. I mean, that was good. I mean, I was virtually being shunned at that time by it, and maybe because I was withdrawing myself from my friends, my brethren friends, and my sister and my family.
What year would this have been, sort of?
So this would be 1984, I want to say. 1984. Yeah. And I remember coming back and just the following day going to another meeting, and my mum saying, you're sitting with me. Because at 16 you'd often go and speak and sit next to other brethren friends, and you would not be sitting with your mother.
That means you're in trouble.
It does, basically. And
I remember a whole Sunday, the whole following Sunday, every single meeting, Mum said, you're sitting next to me. And at that time, I thought, I don't care. Nobody's talking to me anyway. I haven't got any friends to go and sit next to, so all good. I'm fine with that. And it was on the following Saturday that my dad said, you're going to have priests come around to visit you today. So they came round. There were 2 brethren priests from my locality who I'd grown up with. And so that felt strange. It was in my parents' living room on my own.
with two male priests.
Two male priests.
And you were 16?
16, yeah. 2 to 3 hours.
You've grown up with them, so they were close in age to you?
No, they were close, the same age as my dad.
Oh, okay.
So sorry. So one of them had children like my age, and I'd known them all my life, so it just felt really strange. And I think even they felt a bit, I don't know what to say to you. And also they... Yeah.
Very uncomfortable situation, isn't it? You're sitting there. I had one at a similar age with similar people, two male priests that had grown up with the same age as my parents. And it's an incredibly uncomfortable situation. You're 16, you're mid-teens, you're sitting in your lounge with two men who are quizzing you about your sins. Now, I'm not talking about anything of a sexual nature here. For me, they were quizzing why I turned on a radio. That was the line of their question. I imagine yours was similar. Why did you go to the theatre? Why? Yeah,
it did. It was exactly
and do you realise the gravity of what you've done?
Yes,
and you're thinking,
absolutely. It was.
Yeah, and they'd probably done the similar thing 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a case of, are you sorry for what you've done? No.
Yeah.
I said, no. I'm not sorry. Would you do it again? Yes, I would.
And to put it in context, we're talking about going to the theatre, aren't we? To put it into context.
I'll go again. Whereas, is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to confess? No. So maybe they bring something up, that was my dad might have said, or somebody else might have reported, and I just sit there and I just say no comment. So that went on for the first two. So it's the second Saturday. It was almost a repeat of the first. They then start to try and make me feel bad by saying, "Oh, what you're doing is affecting, Mr. Symington, and you just think how terrible your actions are, how bad he would feel, how terrible it is for him to know that you are saying all of this." And then I was thinking, well, I don't care. And then I really didn't care, to be honest. But then they'd turn it on to my parents and they'd say, do you realise how much suffering you're causing your parents? And that would hurt me. That hurt. That really did hurt.
Yeah, that
will
hurt
me. Yeah. And and I did acknowledge, and I said, yeah, I do know. And that was the only time I think I really sort of thought, yeah. And I did say to them, well, yes, I do. And I don't feel good about that. The third week came, it was consecutive weeks on the third week. And I remember thinking to myself, I cannot keep doing this. But if this is what I need to just relax and just have a bit of, and just lighten this up a bit, because it's just doing my head in. And also I was taking my GCSEs at the time as well. So there was all that stress going on as well. So on the third time, it was very different. And I sort of, talked about my week, talked about my family, talked about things that good things that have happened to me, and it was just much more of a light-hearted sort of meeting. And what would happen is, after I had these priest visit, I would go out, and then my dad would come in and they would debrief with him, and he would maybe make some comments or not depending on whether or not he wanted to talk those over with me. On the third time they came and see me and he had his debrief, he came up to me and said, that was so good. He said, they were really encouraged by what you said. You did really well. You keep, you have more conversations like that. He said, we'll get through this. He said, it's really good, Helen, really good. I was thinking, I've just set myself back.
And if I can just interject there for a moment, I know Cheryl said this on podcasts before, but to people inside that listen, when it comes to these priestly visits, you do not have to be on your own. It is in your perfect right to say you want a friend with you. And if you're 16, you can have your parent with you. If you are on your own, you have a right to ask to record it, because it is intimidating, and you are perfectly within your rights to say, I do not want to see two men on my own. And I just want to interject that there for anyone that is perhaps really enduring this at the moment. You have a right to say that, don't you? Obviously, it's at the time we didn't realise our rights, but now, you can refuse. You do not have to have crazy visits. Yeah.
And also, you don't actually have to have the visits at all.
No, you can refuse.
That is fully in your right to say, I don't want to. We've never had a priestly visit since we've left because we've said we don't want it. And I mean, a teenager in a vulnerable position, which he knows it's not confidential, as you did, your father got a debrief, so you know what you said your father would know. That's not confidential. That doesn't make somebody feel loved and ready to confess. No, there's no obligation at all, no matter how they make you feel.
You can point blank refuse to see them if you emotionally can't cope with it. But I digress, but I just think that's quite an important point to make to anyone inside.
Absolutely, very important. Yeah.
Or use the no comment, like Helen.
No comment.
No comment.
Or I know of somebody else that literally didn't answer. They had the strength of character to literally say nothing. Great. So the priestly visits were just nothing.
I mean, in one of my priestly visits, I literally walked out the room and I said, look, I'm not listening to this anymore. I walked out.
That would have been the best one.
That's how it told them.
Well done. I think that's great. And I think refusal and just no comment is a perfect thing to do. But the fourth week came through, and I remember thinking, okay, I've just got to bring this home now. This is just it's gone on for now 3 weeks, and I cannot give them I didn't want to give them false hope at all. And that's what I felt I'd done. That's what I've been made to believe I'd done on the previous week. So I was really direct this time, and I was like, no, I am not sorry. I will never repent. You'll never get an apology out of me. I have done nothing wrong. And, I had a great time. And given the opportunity, I would go back there again tomorrow. It was so good. I had such a great time at the theatre. I mean, it wasn't that great, but I wasn't going to tell them.
But that must have taken incredible strength of character.
It really did.
Because
it did.
They make you feel. They make you feel you've done wrong. You went to the theatre, but you feel you've done something absolutely terrible. And to turn around and say, what I did was not terrible and I enjoyed it and I'll do it again, took incredible strength of character at 16.
Yeah. But I just felt it was, it was something I had to go through to get my freedom. And freedom, I was in the pursuit of freedom. I've been in the pursuit of freedom for 9 years, and I was just about going to get it. I was so close. And so I had to just, from my point of view, I had no other option. I had no other plan to leave. I didn't know how else I was going to leave unless I stayed in for another 2 years, and I just couldn't do it. I mentally, I was just at the end. So obviously that didn't go down too well, and the following day, my mum again used to sit next to me at all the meetings on the Sunday, and Tuesday I didn't go. So obviously, he's got my exams. I was having exams, and I was so stressed with everything that was going on. And my dad came in on Tuesday night and said, just to let you know, you've been shut up. And it was just like, wow, this is I've done it. I've done it. I've actually done it.
Hallelujah.
But also I was like, my goodness, what next? What next? Because
and
everything had been leading up to the point of getting kicked out. But
and that feeling of relief, because I like you, I can remember it was a care meeting. My dad came home from the care meeting. I hadn't gone, and he came home and he said, "Oh, you've been withdrawn from," and I was like, "Yes, I've finally done it."
It's just an amazing feeling. It really is, but also the impact then that I felt was going to have on the rest of the family, because within 24 hours my brother and my 2 sisters left. They're gone. I went to school, I came back, they're gone. And all of a sudden my bedroom that I shared with my best friend and my youngest sister,
so if I could
just mine.
Just explain the rationale behind that, if for anybody that's non-brethren, or if somebody within the family is shut up or restricted, presumably your parents were too, then all the other siblings would not be allowed to live in the same house as this unclean shut up person, so they would have gone to stay with other brethren families overnight, wouldn't they? No question. They just move out. And that's what happened.
Yep. My younger brother stayed. He was only 6 at the time, so he stayed at home, and I was really glad of that. And I think my parents were too. But what happened next was, oh God. So then there were some walls that were placed in, so I was not allowed to go downstairs. I had to live in my bedroom. So my meals were all brought in a tray outside of my room. They put a little table in there, and the tray of food would come up to my bedroom door, knock on the door, which would seem good to me. My food was outside, so I'd go in and get my food, tray on the table. I spent as little time at home as I could. I spent a lot of time with my friend Pam and my other school friends and other friends from her church. I started going to her friend's church, which my dad had a big issue with, going to a different church. I mean, that's probably one of the most simple things I could have ever done. I also got a good news Bible, so I had a Bible that was readable. And again, that was something that, those two things I think he found, my parents I think found quite abhorrent. And within 2 weeks I got my ears pierced. I got a Saturday job. I started saving up. I wanted to get my hair cut, all my hair cut off. And I remember going to a salon and sitting down with a hairdresser and saying, "I'll get all my hair cut." And so it was just a planning day. We went to get a planning day about my hair and what it would look like. So she said, "You just want to trim?" I said, "No, all off."
I want it short.
Sure.
But you were like a bird set free. You were just like, finally, I can live, I can breathe, I can go and do all these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And highlights, lowlights, and colour in my hair. And I thought, this is... So I went back for my appointment. So even when my ears pierced, because I had my long hair, I was covering it up. I was pulling my hair just when I went home, because I just didn't want... Not that I was ashamed of it, but I just didn't want the drama of my parents finding out, and then all that,
And you think we know it would upset your parents as well.
And it would definitely upset.
And none of us want to upset our parents. We know we do
don't.
because of the rules, but we don't actually set out to do that, do we?
But I think maybe my 16-year-old brain was like, do the thing, and then think about it afterwards. So get my ears pierced, and it was like, what do I do now? What are they going to do when they find out? It's a bit like my hair. So finally I went in to get my hair cut, and the hairdresser cut a bit off. She said, are you sure you want to go? No, get it all off.
And also these things, when we do these things, it's kind of like saying to ourselves, I'm not turning back, right?
Yes.
Yes. I got my ears pierced a week after we left, and it was like, no, because this is a visible change and I cannot taking it back, right? That's what you were doing. You were putting your stamp on yourself.
Absolutely. It was absolutely like that. You're so true, Andrea. And the my hair looked amazing, absolutely amazing. And I'm walking home and I'm thinking, I can't hide this. I've got my hair cut.
You could always wear a headscarf permanently, Helen.
I remember walking up the door because I didn't have a key. They would not allow me to have a key. So every time I came home, I had to knock on the door. And I was thinking, oh my goodness. So I knock on the door and I put my head like this. And I put my head on my forehead. For those that aren't watching this on video, I put my head on my forehead, trying to hide my hair. And my mum opens the door, and first thing I say is, "Just to let you know, I've had my hair cut." Of course, she was devastated. She was really upset, and I knew, that every time that happened, I was, I just felt really, really bad. But it was also, Andrew, as you say, it was like and not going back. I knew I would never ever be put into a position of humiliation, of going back and being humiliated. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And everybody there standing and sitting in judgment of you over these minor infractions and incursions that they felt were, against, the teachings of the great men. And it was nothing more than fear and control that they had over you. So I just wasn't going to. I was absolutely never ever going to go back once I'd been shut up. And then.
Again, to put it into context, a bit like going to the theatre, you had your hair cut and you had your ears pierced. It's something the majority of the population in this world do without even thinking about it. But to us in the Brethren, that was just such a cardinal sin. You weren't allowed to cut your hair. You weren't allowed jewellery and adornments. So the gravity of it when you're in the brethren is completely disproportionate to the majority of people's views, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're not talking
so
something awful sin here, Helen. It's just having your hair cut and your ears pierced.
Exactly.
And especially at such a young age, you have shown remarkable clarity, like from 7 till you're only 16. Like this is some stuff, you know, some people realize in their 30s and 40s. Like you had a clear view of how you wanted your life to be and how you saw through the people manipulating you.
It's amazing.
Completely. So jeans as well. I wanted to buy a pair of jeans, desperate. I always wanted to wear jeans from when I was, I don't know, 5 probably. And so that was one of the first things I bought with my Saturday money as well, as well as saving up to get my hair done, was buying a pair of jeans. And what I would do, because I felt that was something I could control and sort of shield from my parents. I thought they would be very upset that they wouldn't want me to wear jeans and trousers. So I would put them in a bag, and I'll go out the house and I'll find a public toilet or bathroom somewhere I could change. I'd change in and spend the rest of the day in my jeans. And then going home, I'd find somewhere I could change back into my skirt so I could go in the house wearing a skirt. Just to shield, because there was so much I'd done that, you know, it was really upsetting to my parents. I just felt that this was something that at least I could just sort of shield them from. But within about a month, 6 weeks, I remember my mum coming saying, "Give me your jeans. They need washing."
Oh, really? She knew, did she?
She found out. Yeah. So that was funny. And then about a year to the day, my dad came in and said, "Just to let you know, you were withdrawn from. You've shown no signs of repentance, and so you was withdrawn from yesterday." And I was absolutely furious. I remember I wasn't relieved. I was furious that they had made that decision without telling me beforehand. I felt like they should have actually let me know beforehand that that's what they were going to do. But no, it was like, oh, by the way, they decided to do that. So they announced to everybody. Everybody knew before I did. I just found that
it's so wrong, because like out here you have the right to defence, but in there you don't.
No,
at all.
No, that's right. That's right. It was quite something. And my dad also said, I was 17 at this time, and my dad also said, it's time for you to leave home. And I said, I agree. The year we'd just come to a stage where it was just absolutely intolerable. You know, I was wanting to live my life, and my parents, it was causing so much pain and anguish to my parents. It was definitely the right thing to do. My friend Pam and her family said, you know, you can come and live with us. And so that's what I did. I went to live with them. And the day that I left home was traumatic. I was crying. My mum was crying. And I said, you know, I wish it wasn't like this. I've never turned my back on you. I will never turn my back on you. And she said, yeah, but, you know, you don't want our life, and we certainly don't want yours. So we can't live together like this. My dad put everything in all my belongings in his car, and drove me around to Pam and dropped me off, and helped me, you know, move everything in. And that was it. They really sort of refused to speak to me or have anything to do with me. Sometimes I'd write them letters, you know, ranting over something rather, and they were always very gracious. But you know, and their letters became sort of more and more minimal. And if I phoned up just wanting to speak to my mum, to hear my mum's voice, she'd say, you know, I can't talk to you, Helen. I cannot talk to you. You know that. And then the call would end. And this is no different to how a lot of brethren, you know, at that sort of time were treated. And I think some are still treated that way. And it's incredibly painful when you have done nothing wrong, and you still love your family, you still have huge amounts of respect for them. So it's very painful.
And there's something that, again, I'd quite like to say to any insiders, the comment your parents made about you have your life and we have ours, and we don't want your life and you don't want ours, what you've chosen, is a comment we hear quite a lot, both when they do press statements and personally. And what I want to say to insiders, that it's actually okay to have different choices in lives and still have a relationship. That happens all the time, doesn't it? You know, our own children choose different lives from us that we may not, but that doesn't mean you cut them off. that's actually okay. And but when you're in there, unless you have the brethren life, it isn't okay. But it will say, actually, it is okay. It's fine for you to go and have your hair cut and have your ears pierced and want to do your A-levels. And it's fine for them to have their brethren life and to believe what they believe. But that should not mean a relationship should end, which we all know it does. But that's where it goes wrong, isn't it?
And that goes back to that level of fear that they hold over you your whole life.
Yes.
That you eventually are raised to think you are going to be in this incredibly hard position if you ever want to make your own choices that are different to theirs, because we are raised that there's one path for all of us, and if you should stray off of it, I don't know quite how to express it, but you're going to be put in this impossible position. You either lose everyone you love to have your own life, or you suffer for the rest of your life living a life that you don't believe in. And it's
absolutely,
like for insiders and people who have never heard about this, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, we were raised to think that's normal. That if you want to live your own life and make your own decisions, you will inevitably be completely cut off from people that expressly still love you. And you were 17 when that happened?
Yeah, that's right.
And your dad literally drove you and said, goodbye, have your own life, I'm gone. Like, that is not normal.
No, it's not. No. Especially when you've come, your family's really close, and and you come from a loving family. Your parents love you, and you love your parents, and you love your family. That's what is so heartbreaking and so destructive. That is such a destructive feature of the brethren.
It also shows the level of control, because I knew your family, Helen, and I know you were a close-knit family. But still, your father could do that. I don't blame your father for that. But the level of control from the system that he was part of drove him to do that, drove him to drop his 17-year-old daughter off and say goodbye. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's still staggering when you put it in black and white like that, isn't it? It's
because he believed that that's what was right.
Yes, he believed that was the right thing to do because you were errant.
Yes. And like in my case, obviously I was still living at home when I was kicked out. So my parents actually had to move out the house. So we never even got to say goodbye. And, it's... and that's the level of control they have. It's like you say, it's devastating. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. I completely agree with us. It's just really sad because all of us, haven't left because we don't love our families.
No,
it's not us that have turned our backs on them.
No.
And as a parent, I mean, I don't know if you have children, Helen, but as a parent, how could you imagine doing that to your children?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we're doing. We're breaking these generational curses in our children. I mean, we're only out a year and a bit. We've got 2 young daughters, and I wanted to leave as soon as we could because I want them to be raised to know that no matter what they choose in their life, beyond obvious evil, which you're going to encounter anywhere, but they can do whatever they want with their life. And I will still love them. I am never going to turn my back on them because I've experienced that. We've all experienced that. And it's something that is just, it's incomprehensible. Like, although your father loved you so deeply, he had to make that heart-wrenching decision.
I mean, it's awful.
It is. And the church made him think he had to do that.
Yeah. Shortly before I left, I became really hyper vigilant of some of the comments that were made, especially towards women. I think even at that stage, me being a teenage girl and being so vocal, I wasn't vocal, I was still quite an introvert, but, being so sure of my own pathway in all of this, it was quite unusual. The comments I used to hear and used to get so angry about within the brethren. So there was a woman a blind sister who had a guide dog, and she was made to give up the guide dog because it was a pet. And of course, brethren can't have pets. So you can't have a guide dog because it's a pet. So what they did was, in one fell swoop, they took away her independence. She then had to rely on everybody else, her husband, to walk anywhere, to do anything. She had no independence. They just stripped it off. They didn't care. Oh, it's a pet. Well, you can't have it. Can't possibly have that.
It's cruel.
Now, if that was a man, would it have been any different? I don't know.
And that dictation probably came from James Symington, who probably had many farm dogs and farm cats running around on his farm.
Yeah. And I remember then being in a break, because I wrote these down, some of these down as well. I was at a break once. There was this poor sister who's had terminal cancer, was in huge amounts of pain, not at the break, but there was, and I think it was her husband or family member who was talking about her, that because I was saying, how is she? She said, oh, she's in huge amounts of pain. She's really struggling, with being in pain. And this other brethren man turned around and said, well, these sisters, they don't know what suffering is. And I just thought, how dare you? I wish I'd had the courage to say, how dare you? How dare you make that comment? These sisters don't know what suffering is. I just thought, wow, that's just something else.
Yeah, I mean, they make that comment, but I mean, the biggest burden is put on the sisters, isn't it, really, with all the entertaining and looking after the kids and
my blood is boiling right now at that man.
I was going to say, I just don't know what to say to that.
That makes my blood boil. Terrible.
And then the other comment that I've heard others say as well. So I've heard this before, that it's better off that, if somebody's going to leave the brethren, well, actually, it's better off they die, because
I heard that one.
I've heard that's been a common one. Yeah. There was also a really sad occasion where there was I won't name them on here, but Jacky would probably know this person. She was a couple, 2 or 3 years older than me, and she was quite a rebel. She got caught, I think, smoking, going to the cinema, and maybe even doing a few other minor infractions. She was shut up, and I remember thinking, because I used to really admire her. I used to think, she's got her life together. She's doing all these things. She'll get herself kicked out, and she'll be on her way. She did get kicked out. She got shut up. And then within 3 or 4 weeks, she was back. And I was thinking, what do you do that for? But she came back. She ended up getting married. And she invited myself and my sister to the reception. I think they had a bit of a few bites to eat beforehand for the wedding. And back in those days, they had these little receptions. It wasn't like a proper wedding reception
in the house,
but that's right. And I still got photos actually in my books of this one. And so it's a lovely wedding. Everyone was so happy. Everyone said, that's so good, she's got this marriage now because she repented and God's provided for her, and how wonderful. She ended up getting pregnant and had a baby shortly, within a year. Very happy for her. And then, very sadly, her baby died from SIDS within a couple of months. Do you know? I don't know if you know, but
I know exactly who you're talking about. I was very good friends with her.
Yeah.
I was at the wedding too, Helen.
And then the awful comments that came on afterwards, which was, oh well, her baby passed with that's judgment because of what she did.
It was portrayed because of her sins. That's why God had taken her baby. That was shortly before I left, and I can remember, because I knew this person pretty well. I can remember I went down to stay with her shortly after the baby died, and I can remember being so upset and angry that they were saying that, and it was shortly before I left. I mean, it's horrendous, isn't it?
It's disgusting.
Really
Yeah.
And this is their forgiving God who had forgiven her and allowed her back into the church.
But she still had to have judgment by losing her little baby. They changed
the narrative to suit them, to keep that fear and control over the members. And this is how it's just part of their narrative that keeps people in their places.
And also going back to the sister that had that was blind and had the guide dog, I was thinking when you were talking, they took away her independence because they like you to rely on them. That's what, so that you're kept in there.
Exactly.
So Helen, how did it go for you the first few years after you moved into your friend's house?
So I was only with her for probably less than a year. I got into my second year of A-levels. I did some of my A-levels early, which really helped because I was desperate to actually earn a living. I really felt at that stage I just needed to get out. I loved being with my friend and her family. They were so good to me, but I also wanted to move on and become a bit more independent, earn a bit more money so that I could maybe afford some of my own. And I was 18 by this stage as well. So I thought about it. What should I do? And I went back to one of my original plans, and I joined the army. And that's what I did. And I'll see if I can show you some photos, because it was
how 80s is that?
So on the right, so I'm still at school at this stage, and I've had my hair cut, I've had my ears pierced, as you can see. But I thought I haven't got many pictures of sort of this era of me, but still at school. But obviously I'm still shut up at this stage, but I've got my hair cut. I don't know what sort of cut that is, but anyway, I
look very worldly and amazing.
It's a 1980s cut. We had perms, Helen. Yeah. This was about a year after I left, and I think I was perming my hair too.
Yeah. And then this was me enlisted in the army there. So
wow.
Yeah, so I just finished my training. I'll just stop that. I just finished my training, and I was in Watford, and just spending a weekend in Watford with my friend Pam. And I was in the town centre on a Saturday afternoon, and went to put some rubbish in a bin, and by the bin was Pam's cousin, who was in the Royal Air Force, and I'd known him, for 2 or 3 years. He was very close to Pam. They'd got on very well. They were, and so he was often around the house, and I'd got to know him really well. We stood talking by that bin. I said, I'm in the army now, by the way. So we had a lot more in common. And we stayed talking for about 2 or 3 hours, and we exchanged addresses. Let's continue to write. And as soon as I got back to Guildford, where I was billeted at the time, in a couple of days there was a letter from him, and I've got a letter almost every single day. And by the end of the week, there was a letter saying, can we start going out? Can we meet? Can we go on a date? And and I'm still married to him now.
Does he still send letters every day? Maybe text instead.
Yes, text and emails. Yeah. So that's really nice. So that sort of kept the connection with Pam as well. But yeah, we got married and I left the army then. I only stayed in the army for about 18 months, and put my notice in to get married. And we've travelled around quite a bit. We had our kids. We've got 3 kids. But something happened 2001, and it's in the summer, and Saturday morning, the post comes. I'm still in bed. Paul goes and gets a post. He says, there's a letter for you. He gives me a letter. I can see from the postmark it's Watford, and I'm thinking, my mum or my dad has written to me. But it's not their handwriting. I open it up and I just absolutely shriek. It's a letter from my younger brother. And his letter says he found my letter in the filing cabinet at home, my dad. So every time we'd move house, I would write to my parents. And we moved 14, 15 times because Paul's in forces, so we'd move every 2 years. We're constantly moving. Every time we moved, I always wanted them to know where I was. If they have anything they needed to talk to me about, they could contact me. So they always had my address. And I wrote, so they had, and I just thought, I just had a feeling they just threw the letters away. I had no idea but my dad had kept every single letter I'd ever written and kept them in this filing cabinet. And my brother had found the letters, found the most recent one with my new address, and he'd used that to write to me. So that's a top tip to anybody. Make sure your family knows where you are.
And I would agree with that, because I did the same. We didn't move much, but I did the same with Andrew's parents. We always told them. And I think I've may have said this before, but I also sent our children's school photographs to them every year, thinking they'll throw them away. And after his mother passed away, we went to see the family in his house, and we found out she'd kept every photo. So send, she kept everyone. And actually in the back room, the latest photographs were out, just the very small cameo were out with her other grandchildren. And that meant so much to us.
Yeah.
So you're right, Helen. Keep telling them. Our doors aren't shut.
No, they're dead. No, exactly. But in his letter, he said that he didn't believe in what the Brethren stood for anymore. He wanted to leave. and he was very unhappy in the brethren. And would I help him? He was reaching out to ask if I would help him.
Wow.
I was just absolutely blown away. And
what's the age difference
so
between you two?
10 years.
Okay.
He's 10 years younger than me. Yeah. So he came. There's 4 of us kids, so we were very close in age. About a year between us. I think Mum had them all, 4 of us in 5 years or something. And then all of a sudden there was a big gap to 10 years. And then our youngest brother came along. So he was really it was lovely. He was very spoilt by all of us. We absolutely all adored him. So for him to reach out, he was probably the one sibling I didn't really know that well, because I only knew him up to the age of 6, and then I didn't know him anymore. So all of a sudden now he's like 23, reaching out saying, hey, can you help me leave? So I wrote back to him, and I felt confident writing back, because even as a child, my mum would never, ever open anybody's mail. She made a big thing of that, saying, I will never open mail. She never did, and I never saw her do it, apart from my dad's mail. My mum and dad's mail, that seemed to be, you know, their mail, and they used to open each other's. That's fine, but
might be a bill.
Yeah, sorry. But as far as the kids, never, ever, ever did she ever open a mail. So I felt, but I was still really careful. I didn't post it from the suburb we were living. I made sure I was outside of the suburb, and then so it wouldn't have the my postmark. So I arranged to meet with him in a cafe in Royston, I think, near Cambridge. Date and time, turn up then, I'll be there. And he did, and he turned up, and he brought some recent photos with him. That was so good to see, recent photos of my family. I hadn't seen any. And we had a long talk, ate together and drank together. I thought, well, this is a good sign. He's eating and drinking with me, so I think he should be okay. And we made arrangements. I said, okay, well, we're going to keep in touch. We need to think about how we're going to do this. In the meantime, go and buy a mobile phone. And that stage, mobile phones were completely banned by the brethren. They weren't. And he said, yeah. I said, I'll definitely get one. He bought one within a couple of days, and he texted me the number. And I said, I won't ever phone you or text you on that. You phone me and text me when you can, and then I'll respond accordingly. So that's what he did, and he kept it very, very hidden. And so we continued having these conversations, thinking about how we could make this work. And then 9/11 happened, and the whole world felt like it was going a bit crazy. And I reached out and said, look, maybe let's just cool things down for a few months and pick things up maybe in a few months. And I don't know. I've just remember at that time, that's what I said to him. And it must have been because I think everything was just a bit, on edge in every sort of facet of life. But he reached out and said, absolutely no. It was almost like me. Was at the age of 16. No, I'm on a mission. I'm going to leave. This is what's going to happen. So I said, okay, well, this is a plan. We concocted this plan together that we would choose a date, and it would be on a Saturday. He would say he was sick. He wouldn't go to the meeting. So the rest of the family would go to the meeting. He would stay at home. He would leave a note, and we would meet him at the house. We'd get everything, pack everything up. We'd have only probably about an hour, if that, but we'd make sure we'd packed everything out, throw everything in our car and his car. He would follow us back. We lived about 130, 140 kilometers, about 80 miles away. And we'd just then have to work things out, with the fallout as it happened. So that was going to be our plan. And I wrote it all down in a letter, and we picked on a date, picked on the date it would happen. There were also sort of set some ground rules about, if you're going to come and live with us, this is what we expect from you too, because as brethren, there was just, he was very, very naive, and I don't think he'd mind me saying that. But, I wanted to make sure he knew what the boundaries were around coming to live with us. Within 2 days, I sent that off. Within 2 days, he called me, or he texted me and said, call me now, call me as soon as you get this. So I called him straight away, and he said, I got home from work and Mum was there. She'd opened my letter, and I was so shocked because that's only something. I said, why was she? So she knew everything. So the following week, and I won't talk too much about it because it's his story, but I will talk about his story in the way that impacted us and what we saw and what we were part of. But this amount of psychological torture that he was put through that week after, because obviously they told the priest, they told the brethren, who then put huge undue pressure on him to stay. They would come up, they would see him after work at home. one by one. In the end, he just shut his door, barricaded himself inside his bedroom. They would push notes underneath his door and money. They would come and talk through the door, and then as soon as one went, another one would come talking through the door at him. It was just absolutely intolerable.
Classic love bombing.
Yeah, very much. So we said, okay, this is enough. He said, I need to leave, and I said, yes, you do. We were working. I was at university at that time, and late going to university late in life, but I'd eventually got to university. So we decided to do it on a Friday evening, and obviously he said, I'm leaving on Friday evening. I'm leaving. I'm getting picked up, or Paul and Helen are coming down, and I'm going back with them. He was driving, so we weren't actually going to pick him up. He was just going to, drive and follow us back. And so that was all planned. He knew. He said, I think they're going to bring brethren to the house to stop me from leaving. And I said, no, they're not. You're not going to be stopped from leaving. I'm going to be there, and they're not going to stop you. And that's when Paul sort of stepped in and he said, let's just calm this down. And he said, this is just think about the effect this is having on your parents. And I said, yeah, okay. He said, I think just I should go and you stay here. But that was like, I can't not go. But he was absolutely right. He was right. And I actually decided not to go because there was no doubt I was going to get very, very emotional. And Paul, not ever being in the brethren, but knowing about the brethren, because I've told so much about him about it, and so he knew as much as any other outsider would know. And so he went down there. Now, what happened was just absolutely incredible. So Paul decided to go down. He was in the Royal Air Force. He decided to go down wearing army fatigues.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
like it.
Yeah.
Strategic move.
It was a strategic move.
Yeah.
So he goes down there. He goes down to a house, and my dad, and he knows that there's going to be an entourage, and he goes to the house. Dad opens the door and ushers him in, and Paul goes into the living room, and there's just peeps sat all around, men sat all around, because obviously the main lead of the local locality sitting in the biggest chair in the most prominent position. Ollie comes and sits right next to Paul, and then they start. And the oldest peep sort of led the way, sort of starting off by saying, how he, my younger brother's turned his back on the JHS and the fellowship, and I think it was Hales was in.
But John Hales,
John Hales was in there. Yeah. John Hales was in. You've been born special. You're not going to find anything fulfilling. You're going to go the way of going to hell, and don't go and leave. Don't go outside the fellowship. There's only death and destruction out there. Well, Paul was not having any of that. He said, don't you talk to me about death and destruction. I've been in war zones all around the world, defending against death and destruction. How dare you talk about something you know nothing about? You've got the faintest idea what you're talking about. And there was a complete silence.
I can just imagine the room. Well done. I can just imagine it. And they've got nothing to come back with to that, have they?
No,
they're so inexperienced.
They would be floored by that.
Nobody ever talks to them like that. No. Nobody.
No.
And that's what I said to him. They wouldn't have. I was like, I wish I'd been there.
Yeah.
So then after a bit of silence, the conversation progresses on, and a younger brother comments, makes a comment how, your sister left for the world, she's walking with evil and all of this, something similar, was saying some very disparaging comments about me. Again, Paul was absolutely not having that, and he said, how dare you talk about my wife like that in her parents' house? You show some respect. You need to apologize for what you just said. And Nothing, just absolute silence. You know, they couldn't possibly do that because they'd lose face with all the other brethren in there if they ever dared do that. And so he said, I've just had enough. I've just had enough of hearing you talk about nothing, of talking about nothing that you know about, and I'm going. And he turned around to my brother and said, are you coming with me or are you staying with this? And my brother said, no, he stood up. He said, no, I'm leaving. I'm coming with you. So they both walked out. And my mum was obviously very tearful. She'd heard the whole conversation. I think it went on for about maybe 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. And my Paul said to my mum, you know, we're going to look after him. We're going to keep him safe. You know, you can talk to him. You know where he is, and he'll be okay. We'll make sure that he's okay. And she just said, you know, thank you. And so, yeah, they put everything in their cars, and Ollie followed. My brother followed Paul, and yeah, he came to live with us for about 6 months, and it was. I wouldn't say it was an easy time, but it was interesting, and there was a lot of learning that he had to do in getting a new job, applying for a job, going for interviews.
And I think again to pick up to people inside, it is actually, even though he's your own flesh and blood and your younger brother, it actually is quite draining in a good way. Having to help somebody adjust if they're on their own. As you say, they have no idea how to apply for jobs. They have no idea where things are. We were all there once, so we all get it. We all get it. But as you say, it's not, you're pleased to do it and would never do any different. But it's not easy, is it?
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. No.
No, and apart from being naive as well, like, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but we're also very ignorant because we haven't been taught that how to adapt to all types of cultures and races and ways of life. We haven't been taught how to just accept people and how to be ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We don't know who we are, so we don't know what to do. Yeah. We also don't know how to act in social situations.
Yeah. Completely agree. And it was at that time, very soon after, because I'm talking 2001, and then 2002. Obviously, there was John Hales died, and then Bruce Hales, and then it was a review, and then all of a sudden, I'm hearing that, you know, brethren are having some contact with their insiders, and that they're allowed now to talk. I was right on the phone to my parents, and I said, so when are you going to start talking to me then? Because we'd had this bit of contact now with my brother leaving. I felt quite able to now, you know, because he was just shut up. They were having a bit of contact with him, so I was muscling in on that and getting in on the action bit, and trying to get, you know, my, you know, some time with them too. Of course, they weren't really going that way, but I was then putting pressure on them, and I said, you know, when are you going to start talking? And my dad said, well, no, that's not something we're able to do. I'm sorry, no. You've gone your way, you know, you've gone outside the brethren, you've gone outside the teachings, you've chosen a life that you're taking. So it's not something we're able to do. I was really upset about this. And then my grandmother, my dad's mother, died, who was in the brethren. She passed away. And my brother learnt about this. I think he got a letter. He just got a letter from my parents saying, just by the way, grandmother died. She was buried yesterday. And he was like, you know, that's terrible. I wasn't just terrible. I said, that is disgraceful. I'm having that out with my dad. How dare he do that? How dare he not tell us before? She could have at least told us before. So I did. And I really did not hold back in telling my dad how disgraceful I thought that was, that he hadn't had the decency to actually let us know that she had passed away, and that waited till she was dead and then tell us. And after I calmed down a bit, I said, well, now will you let me know where she's buried so I can at least go and visit her grave? And he said, well, I'll have a think about that.
Wow.
Anyway, and about a week later, it was really weird because it was on a Sunday. My dad called me. He said, I'm sending you a letter. He said, I've written a little map out for where her grave is so you can go and visit her. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go down next Saturday. I'm going to go. I said, as soon as I know, I will go. So I said, Paul and I and the kids, we're going to go down next Saturday. I can tell you that now. And he said, oh, well, okay, well, maybe we'll meet you there then. Oh, well, I was, what? What do you mean you're going to meet us there?
Yeah.
I know. So I was thinking, well, amazing. Okay. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't really want to know. I was going to see them. That was going to be amazing. So sure enough, the first time I meet my parents since I left that day to go and live with Pam was in the cemetery car park.
And this would have been the first time they'd seen your children then?
First time ever. First time ever.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
We talked in the car park. It was just really lovely. There was no animosity. There was nothing about, or any comments about me coming back to the brethren or whatever. It was just nice. It was just pleasant. It was friendly.
Wow.
It was, and we walked to the grave. This is where your grandmother is. Okay, it's a plot of land. They hadn't even got the gravestone up yet. And it was a public cemetery. And then we walked back and talked a long time. And then my dad said, well, maybe would you like to come back to our house for refreshments? Yes, I would. Thank you very much. That would be lovely.
Oh, wow.
And then it was, then he looked at the two kids who I said, would you like to come back in our car? And you can try, and we'll drive you back to our house. So we went back to my parents' house and spent another hour with them. Obviously, they didn't drink with us, but they made us a cup of tea. We had refreshments. We talked, went through photo albums. And it was just lovely. It's just, I can't explain. Just what an amazing afternoon.
But this is what I would say. Why can't that's how it would be? Why can't, you had that relationship with your parents?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they can't be brethren. They didn't eat with you. We'll respect that. It does not mean they can't be brethren. But they can they can show kindness to you. They can talk to you as parents. They can embrace your children. Why can that not be allowed? Why is that compromise? We'll respect their not eating, drinking. We'll respect their Sundays and going to their meetings. And to have that moment must have been so precious, Helen.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. And I took a photo of that day, and I'll see if I'll share it because it really is special. They allowed us, this is it here. So see if I can, there we go. Can you see that now? I'm just hopefully coming up.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So it's two kids, my parents in their house. These are just on the left there. I think there's a load of there's photos there that we've been going through. But
that's how it could always be. Nobody has to compromise.
No, that's such a normal photo, isn't it? It's two happy grandchildren with their grandparents. And isn't that all we ever want? It's nothing to do with faith or belief. It's just to families be able to not be split up.
Yeah,
that's an amazing photo.
I can see your similarities with your mum, Helen.
I remember your mum so well, Helen. I remember your parents well.
Yeah.
Oh, how lovely!
But no, it was just amazing. It was,
and your kids seem to be happy there. How did they react? Because they've never met your parents before.
Yeah, no, they hadn't. I mean, our daughter, she was quite young. She would have been about 3 or 4, 3 maybe 4. I was actually just pregnant with our youngest son at that stage, and I told my parents, we're having another one. And my mum turned around to me and she said, "It'll be different this time. We'll make it different this time."
Wow!
I remember thinking, it's been so much hope that actually things would be different. And my oldest son, who was in that picture, would have been how would it be now? 10, 11 maybe. And he turned around when we left, he turned around to me and said, "Mum, your parents are so lovely." I think he's so shocked because, and I'd never sort of, painted them in a bad way. It was, but they were in this terrible religion that was, not allowed to talk to me, and I'd done something so wrong, and they must have been so angry with me. But he didn't see anger; he just saw loving grandparents who were interested in him, and it was a really special day. And after that, I was like, well, when can we come again? Well, you can come next week. And then they came to our house, and we saw quite a bit of each other. And I remember sort of pushing the envelope a bit and saying, well, maybe would you like Ben to come and stay with you for, a couple of nights, or, oh no, we can't do that. And I thought, okay, I pushed it too far here. Not at that stage. Yeah. And I said to my mum, I said, I'm just struggling because I don't know what you can give and what you feel what your comfort level is. I said, my comfort level is I'm open. I'm free to be as, give as much contact as possible. I said, I'm just guided by you. I said, you're not guided by me, I'm guided by you. So it's all in your hands. I said, because when I saw you for the first time, I just wanted to see you all the time. And she said, Helen, I felt the same.
Oh,
I thought, yeah, it was. So our contact really was really good. And she said to me, is there anybody else you'd like to see? And my parents said, is there anybody else you'd like to see? I said, well, I'd like to see two of my brethren friends, my girlfriends that I grew up with. I'd love to see them again. They said, well, we don't think we can make that happen. I said, I'd love to see my grandparents in London, who I used to spend my summers with. And they said, okay. Then within a couple of weeks, it's like, well, when would you like to come and see them? I was like, well, next weekend. It was always, next weekend, as soon as I could. And so I went to London, and I spent some time with my grandparents. And again, it was just a lovely, one of my uncles picked me up from the station and took me there. And then at the end, another uncle came and drove me back and dropped me back off at the station. And at all times, they were just so open and so lovely. And then a few months later, my grandmother died, on my mother's side. She passed away, and I was so glad I had that time a few months before. But my dad told me straight away and said, but your grandmother's passed away. And I said, well, I'd like to go and see her. And so they did. They allowed me to go up to London and see her. And I did say I'd like to also go to the funeral, but then my mum said, well, not even I'm allowed to go to the funeral. And then I stepped back and I thought, okay, well, if she's not, it didn't seem right that I went then, and I didn't, and I chose not to go. I chose not to push that because it didn't seem, I couldn't believe that my mother couldn't go to her own mother's funeral.
Well, that's yes.
Yeah, why do you think that was?
It was a different locality. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that's yeah.
I know.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Heartrending. Heartrending.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for part 2. How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. PayPal also has a QR code that can be scanned. Or donate to our Get a Life podcast GoFundMe. If you're in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Check out www.get-a-life.net for Get a Life merchandise, books, and ways to support or get support. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.